Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. So the plan for this video clip is to go through some of the basic strategies that would be enormously beneficial to anyone who's trying to recite and also memorize, more importantly, the Holy Quran. These strategies have been enormously beneficial to myself, and I hope that they would definitely bring the same benefits to the learning society, anybody who's trying to learn, memorize a portion of the Quran or a surah. So I'm just going to dive right in and just start with some of the basics and hopefully paint I suppose you could call it an SOP, a standard operating procedure, or a methodology. Use whatever sort of title that you might feel comfortable with. But these habits would definitely help for the simple reason that memorizing is, if you imagine the brain being just as any other muscle, and you have to go through a set of series to train your brain so you can memorize the surahs efficiently and create a stronger memory map. So the first principle really for memorizing is to use the same Quran that has the same number of lines, for the simple reason that when you look at this page here, this is a 16 line page, and here you will memorize where the surah starts from, how many lines there are, where the page ends, where the rukus are. And these are very important landmarks, because when you're using the same Quran over and over again, it helps you visualize where you might be in your recitation, where you might have made a mistake perhaps, so you can back up. So for instance, over here, if you start the ruku, and if you're down halfway down the page, and if you've made a mistake and if you've gotten stuck here somewhere, you can always go back again and you can visualize where the mistake is. So definitely using the same Quran helps, because you can also make annotations of mutashabihats, or mistakes that attack you. For instance, a very typical example here would be if you're learning Surah Baqarah, for example, and if you come across the very first ruku here in your recitation, you might jump from here to Surah Yasin. So this ayah here, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ خَتَمَ اللَّهُ. When I used to learn this, I used to jump from here all the way to Surah Yasin, which is right towards the end. Here we are. So this ayah here, for instance, وَسَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ is very similar to إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ. So سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ وَسَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. So making notes along the margins of the page really does help you as well. So that's a neat sort of habit that I would definitely encourage you adopting. So using the same Quran definitely helps. I mean, I've had this Quran for many years. And making notes like where you might jump and where you might make mistakes is also another great habit. So using the same lined page would help you create a stronger memory map of the surah that you're trying to memorize. That's the first sort of hack. The second hack, or the second habit, is basically it's about how you would memorize. So let's say, for instance, if you're trying to memorize this portion here, I would generally advise you reciting one ayah about 6 to 10 times, and being familiar with the segments of the ayah that you might find comfortable with, or you might find certain parts of this ayah easy. For instance, this ayah here is on line number 8 here, because that's the way how I memorized it. So you have وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. So وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ would be the easy words, and نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ might be easy for you. So you can pick up easy words, and then you can focus on and sort of hone in or sort of zoom in the words that you might find a bit more difficult. So by simply reciting the ayah itself about 8 to 10 times, 6 to 10 times, depending on the length of the ayat, would help you visualize the ayat and picture it in your mind. And then if you cover it up and actively try to recall the ayah, and don't be afraid if you make any mistakes, because if you make mistakes, that's great, because when you reveal the ayah and you correct yourself, your mind goes through a hyper correction mode. And this is a great strategy because it helps build a very strong memory. So use the same Quran. I would definitely recommend use the same Quran. At the same time, use a recitation and active recall strategy. So you're trying to actively recall the ayah and make several mistakes by testing yourself over and over again. And this is the quickest way of memorizing. So if I recited this ayah 10 times, and if I covered it, and if I actively tried to recall the ayah, and if I muddled it all up, for example, then if I reveal the ayah, then I would correct myself, and that phase of test, retest, and active correction would create a stronger memory. And the third method would be recognizing patterns. And a lot of the time, I mean, this was taught to me from my ustad, and it's been enormously beneficial, and I really wanted to share this with you all. Through recognizing patterns, you would memorize the surah or any portion of the Quran that you're trying to memorize a lot more easier. And you have a lot of these patterns in the Quran. Every single surah, every page might have a pattern. For instance, here you can visualize the pattern here. Here you have an ayah, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. That's the first ayah. The second ayah here is أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And then you have وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ again. So when I arrive here, I know I'm halfway through the page, and I know that there is a sandwiching process here of an ayah. The start of the ayat of the first and third are pretty much the same. So pattern recognition is another very clever tool that you must have in your sort of methodology of learning. So far, using the same Quran would be of great benefit to yourself. Marking down mutashabihats, matching ayats, would also be a great tool. Reciting and actively trying to recall by testing yourself over and over again, that is another powerful tool. And pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is something that I would highly encourage you to get comfortable with. And yeah, those were the main habits that I was encouraged, and I would definitely recommend everyone else adopting these habits as well, because it would make the entire learning process a lot easier. The other thing that I want to talk about is it's great to have learning habits, but at the same time you need to put it into context. So for instance, if you use all of these strategies but have a poor diet, for example, then you're not going to be doing yourself any favors. So you have to understand that the brain, like any other organ, requires maintenance and support. So you have to maintain a good diet, and the diet here would be effectively just stuff that would boost your memory, stuff that would be good for your brain. I normally recommend people having a sort of a collection of nuts, because scientifically it's been proven that especially almonds, they have a very high concentration of ACH, acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter for the brain, and is heavily used in memory formation and the whole processes of memory recall. So I normally have a collection of nuts here. For instance, a fistful of almonds, cashew nuts, and walnuts. And all three of these on a daily basis would definitely boost your memory, enhance your memory, help you in your memorizing journey. And just, well, it's a good diet as well. It's a good dietary supplement to have. At the same time, caffeine is also shown to be of great help. So I normally supplement my diet with a good couple of cups of tea or coffee. You know, the idea is just to sort of use all of the tools at hand and synergize your habits to optimize your learning curve. The third thing that I would like to mention is timings of the day. I normally encourage people to learn in the morning because the brain is a lot more active and learning is a lot more faster. So for instance, if you invest 30 minutes after Fajr or any time in the morning, whenever you're comfortable with, you could be in your bed and you could just pick up a Quran or have a copy of the Quran near your bedside, and the mornings would be the best times to learn because you would pick up new ayats very quickly. Another small trick that I normally use is I normally batch my learning in 3 ayats. So for instance, I would master 3 ayats and then I would move on to the next 3 ayats and try and follow a pattern and use that pattern. So if I get lost, for example, I know which batch of 3 ayats I'm in, and then eventually as the ayats sort of add up, then the 3 ayats can become a page. And you just build your memory map from there on. And I think that's it really. So to summarize, use the same Quran, make notes along the margins. That would be greatly beneficial to you guys. Try to memorize by reciting an ayat roughly 10 times, and then try to actively recall and make mistakes. Test yourself over and over again, and don't be afraid of making mistakes, because it's through that cycle of hypercorrection that you build a stronger memory. And last but not least, your pattern recognition. Be comfortable with recognizing patterns and try and look for patterns. And when you look for patterns, your memory would improve as your sort of search for patterns carries on. And yeah, that's it really. So I hope that brings up benefit to everyone. And the plan for the next set of clips would be to create a series of mutashabihats, all of the notes that I've made along my margins that have been of enormous benefit to me. The idea is to share all of them, and I'm going to be doing that in a series of a quarter at a time. So in the next clip, inshallah, I will try and cover the first quarter of Juz 1, Alif Lam Mim, and then from there on, I'll do a quarter each time. And I've got a lot of mutashabihas, as you can see, that constantly attack me. So it would be good just to sort of make a library of mutashabihats, inshallah. So that is the goal, inshallah. Stay safe, everyone, and look after yourselves. And thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.